This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you to their store and they'll know I sent you there. Hello everyone, I'm Nessa and it is Wednesday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. Today we're going to look at the Scry mechanic. Scry originally debuted way back in 5th Dawn in 2004 and appeared intermittently from then on, with larger focuses placed on it in Time Spiral and Theros blocks, before officially becoming an evergreen keyword just a few years ago in Magic Origins. Evergreen keywords are those types of keywords that you can expect to see several examples of in every single set. The Scry mechanic does something that is seemingly quite small. It gives you a bit of card selection. This type of effect helps you avoid getting mana screwed or mana flooded, and helps you find specific cards in your deck more quickly. As we'll see, tacking this type of card selection onto cards is sometimes enough to push them into being played regularly at the highest level. This type of effect can be particularly powerful on card draw spells, as it lets you see additional cards. Scry has appeared on cards of all colors, but it is the most common in blue, and is the second most common in black. In all, there are 162 cards with Scry in all of Magic, and in this video, we're going to look at the 10 that have made the biggest impact on competitive Magic. Before we get started, a quick reminder on how I rank cards on these lists. Pro Tour and Mythic Championship top 8s, as well as Legacy and Vintage Championship top 8s are worth 2 points, and Grand Prix top 8s are worth 1 point. Now, let's get started with number 10. At number 10, I have Nessa, Steward of Elements, who is the only Planeswalker to make this list. Nessa is an interesting Planeswalker since she is the only one that has X in its mana cost. This allows you to play Nessa with varying amounts of starting loyalty. Once she is in play, the only way that Nessa can raise her loyalty is with her +2, which allows you to Scry 2. This ability on its own is some nice incidental value and does a good job of making sure that your draws aren't going to be dead ones, but it actually combos quite well with Nessa's 0 loyalty ability. If you can scry something to the top of your library so that you can hit it with that 0 ability the next turn, you're going to be getting more than your usual value out of scrying. Nessa has only seen play in Standard so far, where she has been frequently featured in energy decks. At number 9 is Magma Jet, whose original printing came back in 5th Dawn, the very first set with the Scry mechanic. Like a lot of cards on this list, Magma Jet does a good job of driving home the fact that scrying might not seem like a big thing to add to a card, but it really can take a card from being average or mediocre to being played at the highest level. Magma Jet costs twice as much as Shock to do the same thing. 2 mana to do 2 damage to something at instant speed is not efficient, and lots of cards with that basic effect have been printed over the years and haven't found much success. But when you add Scry 2 to the card, it gets interesting. This means that Magma Jet can help you kill a small creature, and then help you make sure that you continue to draw gas instead of lands. While it isn't quite card advantage, once the value of Scry gets to 2, you're certainly getting closer to an entire card of value, since it can improve your next 2 draw steps so drastically. It didn't see any play in Standard its first time through, but after the reprint in Theros block, it had a home in a variety of aggro decks. It also saw play in Extended as a result of its first printing, appearing primarily in burn decks, where making sure you had more damage coming in the next few turns was particularly important. Magma Jet even has 1 Grand Prix top 8 in Legacy from back in 2009 in a Tarmogoyf aggro deck. Magma Jet hasn't put up any points since 2016, and without a standard legal reprint, it doesn't seem like a super likely candidate to see play going forward. At number 8, I have Fatha, God of the Sea, the first of 2 gods to make the list. Like all the Theros gods, you need to reach a certain amount of devotion before Fatha becomes a huge, indestructible creature. However, one of the abilities that Fatha always has involves scrying every upkeep. That's some nice additional value to add to a card that is already quite strong, and it actually synergizes pretty well because you can increase your chances of reaching the necessary devotion to really get Fatha online. Devotion decks dominated Theros Standard, and Fatha was a key part in mono-blue devotion decks, which were arguably the best devotion decks in the format. At number 7, we have Opt, a card that was recently reprinted twice, but actually received its first printing way back in Invasion, before Scry was even close to being a keyword. Opt is the first of many draw spells to make the list. Combining Scry with a cheap cantrip is great because it allows that card to let you see up to 2 cards, assuming Scry is 1, which is more than you usually expect to get for only 1 mana. Top card of your library isn't going to help you? Put it on the bottom and take your chances with the next card. If it is what you want, well, you're going to be happy anyway. Opt saw a little bit of play from its invasion printing, primarily seeing play in control decks like Psychotog. More recently, Opt has been part of several standard decks that are interested in casting cheap spells and ripping through their library. This has included Izzet Phoenix, Mono Blue Aggro, and Simic Nexus. In other words, basically all the blue decks in standard right now. Opt also has found its way into Modern after it was reprinted in Ixalan, seeing play in the Modern Phoenix deck, as well as in Blue-White Control, Blue Moon, Storm, and Grixis Death Shadow. In other words, most of the blue decks in Modern right now. It also has one Pro Tour top 8 in the extended version of Psychotog from 2005. Opt seems like it is in great shape going forward to continue an upward climb up this list, as it will continue to see play in multiple formats going forward, something that not a lot of cards on this list can say. At number 6, we have the Scarab God. This god has a ton going on, and if I'm being honest, I kind of forgot that it had Scry anywhere on its text box until I did research for this video. The Scarab God's absurd power level doesn't really come from that Scry effect. Instead, the fact that he turns both players' graveyards into a resource that rapidly populates your board is what really gets him there. However, the fact that he helps you dig through your library for more gas, on top of the fact that he makes all of these zombie creature tokens, certainly makes him better than he would be otherwise. You can make sure you draw ways to protect him or more creatures to throw into your graveyard for him to eternalize. All this power made him one of the premier control win conditions in Standard for most of the time he was legal there. The Scarab God also has one Grand Prix top 8 in Modern in a Grixis control deck. This top 8 came in 2018, and it doesn't seem entirely out of the question that the Scarab God finds more success in Modern going forward. At number 5, we have Glimmer of Genius, another card draw spell that helps you scry. In this case, you get to see up to 4 cards for 4 mana, plus you get some useful energy along the way. That's some pretty good efficiency for Standard, and Glimmer of Genius was the most played draw spell in Standard for a while, especially because energy decks ran rampant in the format for a while before key parts of the deck got banned and it became a little less of a problem. It continued to see play in post-energy ban Standard though, primarily in control decks. Glimmer of Genius has one Modern Pro Tour top 8 too, in a deck that didn't care about energy at all, which shows you that Scry 2 plus Draw 2 for 4 mana is reasonably powerful on its own. With one Modern Pro Tour top 8 already in the bank, I think it is possible Glimmer of Genius sees more play in Modern in the future. At number 4, we have Read the Bones, a card that is pretty similar to Glimmer of Genius. Like Glimmer, it gives you a Scry 2 and Draw 2 effect. Unlike Glimmer, it is only a sorcery, it doesn't produce energy, and you have to pay life. Still, 3 mana to see up to 4 cards, 2 of which get into your hand, is some pretty serious efficiency. Read the Bones has had 2 shots at Standard, with its first printing coming in Theros block and the second coming in Magic Origins. Like most card draw spells, Read the Bones saw play in control decks, including in both block and Standard both times through. Unlike Glimmer of Genius, Read the Bones doesn't have any points in non-rotating formats yet, and if it hasn't happened so far, I don't think there's a great chance it will happen going forward. At number 3, we have Dissolve, which might be the best example of how Scry, though seemingly minor upside, makes a significant difference for a card. Dissolve is a strictly better cancel. They have the same mana cost and the same basic effect. They both counter a spell. The only difference is that Dissolve lets you scry 1/2. Cancel has had the benefit of about 1 million reprints, and it still only has around 10 points, while Dissolve has 78 points on the strength of a single printing. Countering a spell and then getting to filter the top card of your library is pretty nice. Maybe you set yourself up for another counterspell, or a card draw spell that can help you find a new one, or maybe you need to find removal or your win condition. Whatever it is you need, Dissolve lets you do that a little more easily in addition to countering a spell, and that's pretty significant. As you'd expect from a counterspell, this saw play in control decks in both block and standard. Even with the upside of Scry 1, Dissolve isn't a good enough counterspell for non-rotating formats, where there are plenty of 2-costed counterspells around, but it has a pretty good spot on this list, and is the kind of card that it wouldn't be shocking to see reprinted in a standard legal set someday. At number 2, we have Drown in Sorrow, a board sweeper that scries. This is the kind of card control players love because it allows them to really hamstring aggro decks. Drown in Sorrow probably would have seen play if it didn't scry, but the fact that it does is a nice bonus. Sometimes, by the time you Drown in Sorrow, you're at low life, and you're desperate to draw a land drop that lets you get out your finisher, or maybe you need a removal spell, and Drown in Sorrow helps you get there. Like a lot of the Theros Scry cards, Drown in Sorrow saw a ton of play in control decks in Theros block and in Standard. Back in 2015, it also managed a couple of Grand Prix top 8s in Modern control decks. It hasn't seen play anywhere since then, though, and I think maybe it is done putting up significant points unless it receives a reprint. And at number 1, well, I have 2 cards actually, Serum Visions and Preordain. These 2 cards are quite similar to one another, and their fates are also tied together, so I thought looking at them together made a lot of sense. Preordain is a legitimate number 1, and Serum Visions is number 2. Serum Visions is one of the original cards with Scry from 5th Dawn, so it has been around a lot longer than Preordain. Serum Visions gave us the first indicator of just how good adding Scry to a cantrip could be, because it lets you see up to 3 cards for only a single mana. That is serious value, and while you don't get to draw all 3 of them, and you only get to scry after you draw the card, it still goes a long way towards helping you find whatever it is you need, smoothing out your draws, and so on. However, Serum Visions did not immediately see play, only putting up 4 points in Standard, and some moderate success in Legacy. Between 2004, when it was printed, and 2011, it only managed 13 points, so it didn't look like it was going to take off or anything. In 2011, though, something happened. 2 key cantrips in Modern got banned, Ponder and our friend Preordain here. This suddenly meant that Serum Visions was the best cantrip in Modern, a role that it continues in today, with maybe a bit of an argument that Opt is better. Seeing so many cards for a single mana made it good not only in control decks, but also combo decks like Splinter Twin and Scapeshift, since it could help you assemble your combo. Most recently, it is played alongside Opt in Phoenix decks. It doesn't see play in non-rotating formats because cards like Brainstorm, Preordain, and Ponder are legal there. So that's Serum Visions, but what about Preordain? Why did it end up getting banned? I mean, after all, what's the big difference between Preordain and Serum Visions? Both let you see up to 3 cards and draw 1, but Preordain is better because it lets you scry before you draw, giving you more control over what it puts into your hand than Serum Visions does. This level of almost Brainstorm-like power made decks in Standard and Extended that ran Preordain too consistent, and Wizards didn't want blue decks to be unfairly powerful in Modern too, so it was banned only a few months after the format became sanctioned. Preordain still sees play in Eternal formats like Legacy and Vintage and won't stop anytime soon, so I wouldn't imagine that it is ever going to relinquish its number 1 spot on this list, as Serum Visions is really just keeping pace at this point. Well, that does it for today's MTG Top 10. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future episodes of MTG Top 10, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to see all the ones I've made in the past, you should see the playlist on your screen now. Thanks for watching.